It could be I'm not as hooked or I'm not engaged, kind of like how I was for Vinland. I've always been kind of like an in and out kind of person on JJK. I think a lot of the troops were there, and I did like how it did seem to be like more of a mature story compared to other things that I've read. But I don't know. It lacked a lot of like the interesting. I don't know. I needed something to like pull me in, and I don't know if it's because of Yuji himself. I'm not like a Yuta MC type of guy, but I don't know if it's because of Yuji itself. But I was never just grabbed. I would say like more like meme culture and internet stuff made me want to like get into it more than anything. But I don't think it's bad though. I'd probably give it like 5, 6.
So, just like everybody here, y'all remember what we did last time. So we're gonna kind of go through different categories to talk about JJK. We'll talk about the plot, the characters, the theme, the art, the setting, the world building, the power system, all that good stuff. And we'll kind of talk about it, give our own individual ratings, and then we'll kind of average it all up. So we'll start it off with the plot of Jujutsu Kaisen and talk about the beginning of JJK. What is our thoughts about JJK? Kai, there might be slander. We have to talk about the ending again, so there might be slander. I don't know.
Unfortunately.
So we'll let our special guest Serena start out. What did you think about how JJK started?
Um, I think it had a really strong start. It's pretty interesting. The concept starts off pretty familiar in a sense, but then we get into some different things involving like a teenager getting a sentence of being killed at the very beginning is like a great hook, I think. So we have like our cool white-haired mentor character. We've seen that before. We've got like our emo boy. So certain things were familiar, but then there's these interesting twists that make you want to see more.
I agree.
What for everything we're gonna kind of give our own like rating on how it is, 10 being a perfect start and 0 being it was absolute garbage. So what would you give like a rating for the beginning of JJK?
Okay, so 0 to 10.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd give it for the start. I give it a 7.
7. Okay. Miles, what do you think?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been moderate a lot of the time, but I'm kind of low on JJK. I don't really remember the beginning like that, or at least the important moments of it. At least, um, I don't know. It could be I'm not as hooked or I'm not engaged, kind of like how I was for Vinland. I've always been kind of like an in and out kind of person on JJK. I think a lot of the troops were there, and I did like how it did seem to be like more of a mature story compared to other things that I've read. But I don't know. It lacked a lot of like the interesting. I don't know. I needed something to like pull me in, and I don't know if it's because of Yuji himself. I'm not like a Yuta MC type of guy, but I don't know if it's because of Yuji itself. But I was never just grabbed. I would say like more like meme culture and internet stuff made me want to like get into it more than anything. But I don't think it's bad though. I'd probably give it like 5, 6.
5, 6. Okay, 5 or 6. Do we think that if it's not memorable, is that something that should be held against the beginning?
As the
I
person who
remember.
Didn't grab
can't
you.
remember,
I remember it. I don't.
yeah, as the person I can't
Yeah,
remember,
I don't.
I'll say
Yeah.
no. I could just be a bot. Like that's fine. But no, I don't think it should count against the series because somebody can't remember it.
I
But
agree. I agree.
go ahead.
I agree with Miles in terms of you'd rather have you'd rather be not memorable in my opinion than be like remembered badly. Like
I
if,
agree with
if
that
you
too.
have especially I'm a big person in first impressions to certain series, right? Like for instance, Don to Don. I never read the manga, but I just saw the first episode of the anime. And I'm still like me and Moon Peaches, which is Lonnie's significant other, we had a whole conversation about it in the Discord. Like we were just like, this is so weird, especially when you're talking about such a big like thing to me, like how it's depicted in terms of a situation like that. And it's like they try to make it funny, and it just didn't hit the way I wanted. And I think JJK for me suffered like that. Like if I compare it to the 3 that I watched, like in terms of My Hero and like for instance Attack on Titan, like I think JJK clearly has the worst first impression of the three. And I'm not saying it's bad. But when All Might tells Deku he can be a hero, like I felt that. Obviously, the armored Titan shooting through. I always mess up the wall name. Is it Shiganshima?
Shigashina.
Yeah. When he busts through there, you feel that. And obviously, at that point, Attack on Titan's grabbing you by the throat because it's like so many people about to die right here, and then obviously knowing everything. So JJK suffers from that a little bit, but I think it's also like Miles said, it's a mature story. It's trying something really new, but I wish they just kind of got to it. Why do we spend so much time with his friends in that occult club thing when they didn't matter at all at the start of the story? But I'm probably Miles. I'm like 6 or 7 for the beginning of the story.
I would say this. Here's why I liked it, because I think once an inciting incident happens, it's supposed to shift the story to a point. It's supposed to break the status quo of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So we're supposed to get the status quo of Itadori's life. He goes to school, he lives with his grandpa, all these things, and then the Sukuna finger breaks the status quo because now it's like your whole life is completely shifted. Now you're going to be a Jujutsu sorcerer or you're going to get executed. You got to pick one. So I think that the purpose was to establish what is the status quo of the current world, and now him eating the finger breaks it. That's just like I think that's a great way to set up an inciting incident. So I think that was the purpose of it, to establish and break the status quo. So that's what I think. I think that him eating the finger is one of the more memorable inciting incidents in manga, I would say. Like I think a lot of people remember him eating the finger. Like if you think about inciting incidents in other manga, him eating Sukuna's finger, I think it's pretty memorable. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to what you said, that, you know, you set it up where it's like a normal situation and then obviously you break status quo. I do think that is an effective way to kind of establish everything. Kind of similar to Tokyo Ghoul, right? Like in the beginning of Tokyo Ghoul, it just like he seemed like he had a normal life, and then all of a sudden he met Riza. And then it got batshit crazy, right? JJK. All right, my question for the panel. I have a question for the panel. I actually didn't start with JJK in the traditional sense. I started with JJK 0 first. So could I count that as the beginning?
I mean, it's part of the story still. Like it's a lot of stuff that's in there that informs a lot of stuff in the current story, like Ghetto and Yuta. So
I mean, if you think about it like how Berserk does it, I mean, I know a lot of people introduced to Berserk by the Golden Age, and when they realized that the Black Swords and Rock is technically before that in the story structure, I think you're fine.
Yeah, well, that's just because
Zero was great. Yeah,
the
Zero was great.
chronology of that is different from, I believe, the anime and the manga. So I mean, that's just the anime changing things up. Whereas JJK 0 is necessary, obviously, very necessary. Mm-hmm. But I don't even. It's the prologue, so it's obviously before the timeline of events. But again, it's not part of the main manga necessarily, so I don't know where you would put that. But since that's where I started, obviously, I really like JJK 0 because Yuta is my dog. And Yuta is a dog. He's him. Absolutely. So that left a strong impression. And I think everybody here would agree that Yuta left a strong impression from JJK 0 when everything started. Obviously, you also met Geto and see what he's all about in that prologue as well. I'm gonna give it, because of that. It's a little cheating, but that's where I started. I'm gonna give it a 9 for me. For that beginning, Ty, what did you give?
I got other. If we're just talking about like the open, we're just talking about like the chapter 1, right? Like
mm-hmm. That's what I thought.
I was thinking first episode. Yeah.
I mean, so
okay. I give first episode. Okay, I'll change it. I'll change it.
I'm saying for you can be the movie. For me, I'm saying for people who start with JJK, the main story, we're starting with like, because the beginning, every time just the first episode, first chapter. We're going by that. I would say like a solid 8 or 9. Like, I think it follows the traditional standards of what a first chapter should do. It's structured really well, breaks status quo. I think it's like an 8 or 9.
Okay, Lonnie, beginning of JJK.
So based off the first chapter, I would give it probably like an 8 or 7. I thought like,
stop giving 2 numbers, you fools. Stop it.
I give it a 9. I say 9. Go ahead.
All right, I'll say 7 then.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think it was a pretty good setup. I don't think it was like the best setup chapter by any means, but it was definitely a good setup. I heard a little bit what Ty was saying. I don't think the finger eating thing was that wild because we're talking about shonen. There's always something crazy going on in the first chapter. So in terms of like shock value, it wasn't really that crazy. But no, it established Yuji's like kind of psyche pretty well. and introduce Megami. And yeah, I think the weird thing about JJK is I feel like you have to like to get like the full impression of the beginning of JJK, you have to read the first 2 chapters. You can't just read the first one to actually like, get like the whole story of like what's going on in the first episode. You kind of need to read the first 2 chapters. So yeah, I give it an 8.
8. Okay. And then Miles, did you give it a 6 or a 5?
I'll stand on the 6.
6. All right, let's math this out.